Hello and welcome to 64 Squares Official. The Cairns Cup has begun in spectacular fashion, and in round 1, we got a fascinating All India clash between two young grandmasters, Vaishali Rameshbabu and Divya Deshmukh. On paper, this looked incredibly balanced. Vaishali came in rated 2489 and Divya 2490, but what followed was anything but balanced. The game slowly transformed from a quiet opening into a brutal battle on the queen side, then into a massive time scramble, and eventually one final tactical mistake decided everything. So let's go through this game move by move. D4, Vaishali starts with the classical D4, taking control of the center. Now D5, Divya responds with D5, immediately challenging White's central ambitions. Now C4, and now we get the Semi-Slav Defense. White builds a strong pawn center with C4. Now C6, while Black supports the D5 pawn with C6. The Semi-Slav is one of the most respected openings in elite chess because Black accepts a slightly cramped position temporarily in exchange for a very solid structure and excellent counterplay. Now knight to f3 and knight to f6. Both sides develop naturally. White keeps the option of e4 while Black puts pressure on the center. Now knight to c3 and e6. Black completes the typical semi-Slav setup. And now White has a very interesting choice. Now queen to c2. Vaishali chooses queen to c2, preparing to support the e4 advance. And that is exactly what happens. Now a6. Divya plays a6, a very thematic move. Black wants to prepare b5 and gain a queenside space. Now e4, and there it is. Vaishali goes for the ambitious central expansion. White now has a very impressive looking center, but Divya immediately challenges it. Now d takes e4, attacking the queen. Now knight takes e4 and knight takes e4, queen takes e4. The center gets simplified. Black exchanges the knight on e4 and White's queen recaptures. At first glance, White seems very comfortable, but Divya has one useful move. Bishop to b4 check. Black develops the bishop with tempo. Now bishop to d2. Bishop takes and knight takes. The bishops are exchanged and White recaptures. The position is becoming more strategic. Now knight to d7 and Vaishali castles long. That immediately tells us something important about the upcoming battle. White's king is now on the queen side and Black is already preparing the attack that exact area, b5 and a5. Now Divya goes for kingside castling. Divya castles kingside. So we have a classic strategic situation. White king is on the queen side and Black king is on the king side. That means both sides can potentially attack on opposite wings. Now bishop to d3 and knight to f6. White develops the bishop to an active square. Divya brings the knight back to f6. Now queen to e5, a very active queen placement. The queen eyes the king side and central squares while also keeping an eye on Black's position. But Divya immediately starts pushing on the queen side. Now b5, the plan is crystal clear. Black wants to expand b5 and b4 and potentially a5 and a4. So this is not just gaining space, this is potentially an attack against the king. Now knight to b3. White moves the knight toward the queen side. Now a5. Divya continues. Now knight to c5 and a4. And now Black has pushed the a pawn all the way to a4. This is a very important moment. Black has gained a huge amount of space around White's king. White has to make some difficult decisions. Now king to b1. Vaishali moves the king to b1. This is a very logical defensive move, but Black's queenside expansion has already created significant pressure. A bishop to a6, putting more pressure on the c4 pawn. Divya brings the bishop to a6 and this bishop becomes an important piece in the position. It supports Black's queenside operation and puts additional pressure on White. Now knight takes a6. Vaishali decides to eliminate the bishop. At first glance, this seems perfectly reasonable, but players might ask why leave an active bishop on a6. But according to the game analysis, this was an inaccuracy. The stronger move here was c takes b5. This is the key idea. Instead of exchanging the knight for the bishop, White should have immediately challenged Black's queenside pawn mass. The position is extremely dynamic and White needed to strike before Black could consolidate the queenside expansion. Now rook takes a6, Divya's rook recaptures and suddenly Black has an active rook on a6. The position is becoming unpleasant for White. Now rook h to e1, Vaishali brings the rook toward the center. but once again the critical move was c takes b5. White still had the chance to attack black's queenside structure. This is a recurring theme in the game. White is spending time on piece activity while black's queenside pawns are becoming increasingly dangerous. Now b takes c4, attacking the bishop on d3, and now black finally breaks through. The b5 pawn captures on c4. Now bishop takes c4, attacking the rook on a6. White takes a pawn, but black's pieces are active. Now rook to a5, the rook comes to a5, black is coordinating nicely. Now queen to e3, white's queen retreats, and now Divya has an opportunity to maintain serious pressure. Now queen to b6, the engine's strongest suggestion was a3. This is the move we need to remember. Black should have pushed the pawn further toward white's king. Instead, queen to b6 allows white a chance to breathe, and suddenly the valuation swings dramatically. From a position where black had a significant advantage, the game becomes much closer to equality. Now rook to d2, Vaishali misses the opportunity to seize the initiative. The stronger idea was once again a3. This is becoming almost comical. Both sides are missing the same critical pawn break. Now rook to d8, and Divya returns a favor. Once again, a3 was the strongest continuation. Instead of pushing the dangerous pawn, black chooses rook to d8. The advantage slips away. Now rook to c1. Vaishali continues improving the rook, but once again a3 was a critical move. The position is now a fascinating battle of nerves. Black has the attacking potential. White needs to stop the queenside pawn before it becomes a monster. Now rook to a7, and once again Divya misses a3. 4 moves in a row have revolved around essentially the same idea. This is what makes this game so instructive. Now a3. Finally, Vaishali plays the move, and this time the valuation swings toward white. The dangerous a-pawn is finally challenged. The immediate queenside attack has been neutralized. Now rook a to d7, doubling of rooks. Divya doubles the rook and keeps the position complicated. Now rook c to d1. White brings another rook to the d file. The position is now becoming very tactical. Now h6. Divya gives the king some lift and prevents potential back rank problems. Now h3. Vaishali does the same thing. Both players are preparing for the next phase. Now knight to d5, attacking the queen on e3. The knight comes toward the center. Very logical move. Black wants the knight to find active squares and potentially attack white's pieces. Now queen goes f3. The queen moves to f3. Now knight to e7. Divya changes the knight's route. The knight is heading toward more active squares. And now the time trouble begins and the game takes another dramatic turn. Vaishali has almost no time left. After move 26, she has only around 45 seconds, but Divya has around 3 minutes and 54 seconds remaining. That difference becomes enormously important. Now queen to e4. Vaishali moves the queen, but the stronger move was g4. White needed to gain space and kick black's pieces before black could coordinate. Instead, the queen moves again. Now knight to f5. Divya's knight finds an excellent square, and suddenly black's pieces become much more active. Now g4, attacking the knight. Vaishali finally plays the g-pawn advance, but now it's a little late. Now knight takes d4. Black grabs the pawn on d4. This is a very important moment. Black's knight has invaded the center and white's position is starting to crumble. The valuation is now clearly in black's favor. Now king to a2. Vaishali moves the king to a2, but this was not the best defense. The stronger idea was queen to e3. White needed to keep the queen active and maintain defensive coordination. Instead, the king move gives black additional tactical possibilities. Now queen to c5, and this is a strong response. The black queen comes to c5. Now the queen and knight are working together and white's king is becoming increasingly exposed. Now bishop to d3. This is the losing move. White had only around 33 seconds left. The better defensive move was bishop to f1, but Vaishali plays bishop to d3 and Divya immediately sees the tactical opportunity and she plays knight to b3, attacking the rook on d2. This is the killer move. The knight jumps deep into white's position and creates devastating threats around the king and queen. Black's pieces are now completely coordinated. White's king has nowhere safe to hide. Now rook to c2, attacking the queen on c5. Vaishali desperately tries to defend, but the position is already beyond repair. Now queen to d5, and this is the final blow. The queen comes to d5, coordinating perfectly with knight and rooks. White can no longer hold the position. There is no salvation, and it was here Vaishali resigned the game. Now let's see what if white plays queen to f7 check, then king goes to f8 and bishop plays e2 attacking the queen. Now knight to c1 check, king plays b1 and queen to a2 check, and king takes c1 and queen to a2 is checkmate. And what a game this was, not because it was a flawless masterpiece. It was not. In fact, both players made several inaccuracies, but it was a fantastic demonstration of practical chess under pressure. The queenside pawn race was everything. The moves b5, a5 and a4 were central to black's strategy. With white's king on b1, Divya correctly identified where the potential attack was going to happen. With c takes b5 was white's key defensive idea. Vaishali had multiple opportunities around moves 17 and 18 to strike at black's queenside pawn structure. Instead, the game became increasingly uncomfortable. This is a classic chess lesson. When your opponent is attacking on one wing, don't always defend passively. You have to strike at the base of the attack. a3 was a move both players kept missing. This might be the most interesting part of the game. Around moves 20 to 22, the same idea repeatedly appeared. a3, black could have played it, white could have played it, black missed it, white missed it, and black missed it again. Finally, white played a3 and the position dramatically changed. That's an excellent example of how a single pawn move can completely alter the evaluation of a position. And then came the clock. The final phase was heavily influenced by time. After move 26, Vaishali had less than a minute. Divya still had several minutes. And when you are playing with seconds on the clock, moves like queen to e4, king to a2 and bishop to d3 can happen. And the final blunder was especially costly, bishop to d3. And this allowed knight to b3 and suddenly black's attack became decisive. So Divya Deshmukh starts her Cairns Cup campaign with a huge victory over Vaishali Rameshbabu. It was not a game without mistakes, far from it. But Divya kept the pressure on, survived several missed opportunities of her own, and when the decisive moment arrived, she found knight to b3 and finished the game with precision. And that is sometimes the difference between winning and losing at the highest level. Not playing the perfect game, but finding the critical move when it matters most. If you enjoyed this analysis, make sure to like the video, subscribe to 61st Squares Official, and turn on the notifications for more brilliant games from the world of chess. So that's it for today. See you in the next one.